In 1964, Granada Television brought together a group of 7-year-olds from all over the country and from all walks of life.
I'm going to work in Woolworths. I read the Financial Times.
They talked about their dreams, their ambitions, and their fears for the future.
Everything flew up in the air. It all landed on my head.
For nearly half a century, in a unique, groundbreaking series of films, we have followed their lives every 7 years. They are now 56.
Sometimes we go out and play nicely with the boys, and sometimes we go out and argue with the boys.
Sue grew up in the East End of London.
I don't think I'd get married too early. I'd like to have a full life first.
Marriage just means a different thing to me. I've still got my ideals about marriage. I don't know what it's all about.
Sue was 24 when she married Billy, and they had 2 children, William and Catherine.
I think that to get married young, there must be things that you miss. You must miss that crucial stage of being yourself, because the minute you get married, you're no longer a single being, you're a partnership, and that should be the idea behind it.
By the time Sue was 35, she was divorced.
I've never sat down and thought, well, what was it? Was it this? Was it that? I just knew it wasn't working. I mean, there have been relationships when I could have settled, but they didn't feel quite right. So I've always come away and pulled away and just waited until the right one come along, if they ever do.
At 42, when we filmed Sue in the karaoke bar, she brought Glenn along to watch her sing.
We've just met and things are going well, but now obviously things are going very well.
Well, we've been engaged now for about 14 years. I'm not beating any records, but it's quite a long time, isn't it? Yeah. Come on in.
Jesse, come on.
We're completely different people. He's very energetic and tidy-minded, and I'm lazy and completely unenergetic.
You're lazy?
I am completely, absolutely lazy.
Anything you want me to do?
And what about the romance of getting married?
Yeah, I mean, I do admit it would be a nice party, you know, and I quite relish the idea of having everyone round and having a good old drink and a celebration, but I can have a party anytime. Oh, you're on the phone too. When I got married, the primary reason was because I wanted to have a child. The two, to me, went together.
Have you and Glenn thought of having your own child?
Glenn would have made a great dad. And when we first got together, he sort of asked me if we could have a family and all that, but I felt like I was past it, really, to be honest. I mean, I had 2 teenagers and didn't want to do that again, but he's loved bringing them up.
I mean, last time we talked about a bit of tension in that area.
No, I think that was probably just the age they were, and every family goes through that. There was nothing in particular, I don't think. It's just, all part of growing up, really.
It wasn't easy being a single mother, was it?
No, it wasn't. And I look back on it now, and I just amazed how I got through it, you know.
What's the toughest part of it?
Probably a combination of not having enough money to do what you want and being alone and being scared when things happen, when things go wrong, which they always do when you've got kids, you know. You've got no one there to turn to, you know, to talk about things like that.
And you had to work?
Yeah, had to work, yeah. But I was always only part-time so that I could fit it around school.
So who was the biggest help to you during this whole single parent?
Well, there's no doubt at all. I mean, without my mum and dad, I'd never have survived it, you know. They were brilliant. They were really...
During this whole single parent?
Well, there's no doubt at all. I mean, without my mum and dad, I'd never have survived it, you know. They were brilliant. They were really, really good. They mean the world to the kids, and they used to look after them, always be there if something happened and I had to go somewhere.
Yeah, nice, isn't it? It's the first time we've seen.
And how are they doing now?
Yeah, they're fine. I mean, Dad's 80 now and Mum's 78. I think, I'm so lucky that they're still reasonably active.
There you go. That's lovely, that one, isn't it?
I've still got Catherine with me because she hasn't found anywhere else to go. I mean, I'm sure she would love to leave me, but I love it, the fact that she's here. We go shopping and, you know, we do girly things, do each other's hair and things like that. So I would miss her, but I know that she needs to get out and move on.
I only had to have one filling, right? That was about the only thing that I had done.
What about William?
Well, he went to Australia for a year and he never settled back in being independent. I think it was too much, plus his room here was far too small. I mean, his computer was bigger than the room, you know. So, so he's renting. It's just so hard for them to be able to afford something. So in the future, your kids are going to be with you for a long, long time. But a lot of my work is involved in making bookings and dealing with hotels abroad.
At 21, Sue worked for a travel agent. At 35, part-time for a building society.
Everything's changed for me because I'm now supporting myself a lot more than I was a year ago.
At 42, she went back to work full-time, helping to run the courses in the legal faculty of Queen Mary College, University of London. At 49, she was the main administrator for their postgraduate programme. Do you like the responsibility?
Yeah, I love the responsibility. I think I was born for the responsibility. I'm now sort of the coordinator of the entire programme, so sort of margin charge really of the of the LLM. It's like my baby really. I've nurtured it from its small beginnings into what it is now. Thank you very much. See you at graduation, yeah? I really do enjoy it. You know, I get up of a morning and I don't ever think, oh, God, I can't face going soon to work. But I know that happens to a lot of people, so I'm lucky, really. Someone's having trouble downloading this attachment, so I'll take this down for them.
So you've got a lot of responsibility. Is there stress attached to it?
Sometimes. I mean, some parts of the year are busier than others and you've got deadlines to meet. But then, in a way, that's good because it keeps you on your toes, you know. Never get bored.
Where does the life of my respectable middle-class mother overlap with a working-class slapper who leaves a illegitimate child on a church doorstep?
She was not!
You don't know!
She was young and frail. It started not long after the last programme with Tony, my neighbour, and he belonged to the group. And I said, oh, you know, I've been wishing I could do dramas for years, you know, since I was at school. And he said, come along. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? To stand on the stage and sing and have people, hopefully, appreciate it, hopefully. You know, but there's still that little nervous thing, the butterflies in your stomach when you're waiting for the curtains to open and, you know, it's a buzz, really. Realistically, this is the point you really do have to consider. You can't do two modules that are taught at the same time, obviously. You know, it's physical. When I get on the stage to speak to 500 students, now some people would find that very daunting, but I actually don't, because I think if you know they can never ask you something you don't know the answer to, then I think that helps build your confidence, and I'm not exactly shy, am I? It always takes one, you see. Once you get one, then other people tend to ask. But
you never went to university, and now you're right in the middle of a huge university machine.
I suppose I should count my blessings that I'm actually in a university, having not done it myself, yeah.
Looking at it, do you wish you had had that opportunity?
Just not really. It's the same as anything, you know. Why look back and say, I wish I did this or I wish I'd done that? I've had a good career. At least I'll have my own home, which is a new thing for my family, because my mum and dad are obviously still in council place. I'll never be a rich pensioner. I'll never be able to travel the world once I retire, I'm afraid. But as long as I can keep the house warm and we can feed ourselves, I think that'll be fine.
I don't like the big boys hitting us and a prefect sending us out for nothing.
When he was 7, Paul was in care in a children's home in London. Were you happy at the children's home in England?
We didn't mind that really, because we didn't know what was going on, because we were a bit young then. Well, as far as I know, my mother and father they separated originally, I think. They eventually got divorced. I went to the boarding school for 1 year and then we immigrated to Australia.
Paul settled with his father and stepmother in a suburb of Melbourne.
Do you like to get married, Paul? Tell me why not.
I don't like say you had a wife. They say you had to eat what they cooked you, and say I don't like greens. Well, I don't.
I know I prefer to be alone, really. I can't say I don't want to get married, because I think I do. But I want to be happily married, you know, and therefore I want to make sure, I think.
What was it that you fell in love with? What is it about him?
His helplessness, I suppose. It was the motherly instinct in me to pick him up and cuddle him. And he's also very good looking, I think, but he doesn't agree with me. And in the summer he's got this cute little bum in shorts.
I mean, I can tell quite a few stories here, but the one that really irritates me the most is when we have an argument, he says, "That's it, leave me." And I say, "Fine, all right, I will one day." We had our 20th wedding anniversary this last Christmas, just before Christmas.
Which is the life sentence.
Yeah. Everyone reckons that we should be out of jail by now.
To a certain extent, we started thinking, well, do we really know each other now? Because you just get in the humdrum of going to work, coming back home.
Running kids here and
kids here and there. And I don't think you mean to, but you probably stop thinking about each other a lot.
You know, it's still the last person you want to see at night before you go to sleep and the first person you want to see when you wake up.
Do you still like to cuddle and love and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, but not in public.
No. Yes.
But is the chemistry still there?
Yes.
You don't sound sure.
Well, we like to keep it private.
I had to wait for the answer. I find it hard to express emotion most of the time. Although I'm getting on top of that more now, you know. I mean, just a simple thing to say to sort of Susan, you know, I love you, something like that. I mean, I can tell you about it, but I really haven't been able to say it freely to Sue, you know. It's a bit hard to talk about. I did end up having to get a bit of help, and it wasn't directly due to our relationship. It started at work, unfortunately, which brought my self-esteem down, which tended to affect everything else. I know the lack of confidence is there. It still applies to me, but I don't dwell on it. It's there and I have to put up with it.
You know, I just think you take on a little bit more of each other's personality, because whenever I was decisive and I made a decision and say, well, look, let's do this, because, you know, Paul, not that he couldn't make the decision, but he had all these questions to ask, and I used to think, oh, stop asking questions. And I suppose now I start to question myself, well, maybe you should ask the questions. So it is that bit of living with the other personality.
I was going to be a policeman, but I thought how hard it would be to join in.
I was going to be a phys ed teacher, but one of the teachers told me that you had to get up into university.
As a young man, Paul spent many years in the building trade and then moved on into factory work.
Okay, the question was, Gracie Field sung, in the what in the moonlight? It's a retirement village with independent living, and then it's got assisted living in the hostel, which is mainly where I work, which has got 6 letters. Gracie Field sang. They have their own laundry. It's a complete unit. They have their own lock-up garage. So there's a couple of parcels there that probably need delivering to one. And that's why Paul's there. I call him the man about the house at work, because he changes light globes, problems with their taps, they go and check it out, cleans the gutterings, fixes squeaky doors or doors that are broken, because the village is now 25 years old, so the maintenance is starting to gather.
How you going up there, Paul?
When the job came up, I said to Susan that if there was any problem at all with us working together, then I'd leave. But so far, we've found it really quite good. Hi, Lola, how are you?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
I've probably always been a little bit more relaxed around older people, probably. I always liked older people as I was growing up, funny enough.
By the time they were 28, Paul and Sue had 2 children, Katie and Robert. Katie did well at school and went on to university, the first person in her entire family ever to do so. Robert trained as a car mechanic. He met his wife Stacey when they were teenagers, and now they have 5 children.
So there's Lucas, who is 9. Then there's Ryan, who's about to turn 7 at the end of this month. Then there's Hayley, who's just turned 5, and she'll start school in the new year. Then there's Shane, or better known as Shane-O, and he is 3 this week. He's the joker, I think, out of the lot of them. You know, if he does something and you laugh, he'll laugh with you, and he loves a joke. And then there's little Troy that's 12 weeks old. I look back at my grandmother and I've taken some wonderful lessons from her. Grandma made us all feel that we were her special number one. But I really think that that's the secret to being a grandparent, is to make every child feel that they have someone that they can relax with, be themselves with. Grandparents now have a really huge part to play in their parents' lives because the pressure's on them to work so much, and grandparents fill that hole of mum not being home every day. So, Sand, I've already made the frog in the ponds. Good. So there they are for the kiddies. Great. And your Rich likes fairy bread. I know. Let's get some spiders and snakes in there. Happy birthday, dear Shane. Happy birthday to you.
It's a real struggle for them financially. But at the same time, you know, like all young kids, there's areas that we look at and go, well, we didn't have that.
I've got 23 threepenny pieces, and I don't know how many halfpenny pieces I've got now.
Oh, look, there's a whole stack of duckies over there. So poorly organised. It was just like a face. Neither of our kids have got credit cards. They don't live a credit life yet. I mean, they try and pay as they go, which is what we've always thought, and that's kept our head above water. We always felt if we were unemployed or out of work, if you own your house, you've got a huge buffer. And Robert's of the same belief.
In their 20s, Paul and Sue sold up, bought an old van, and travelled across Australia.
I think it brought us close together because we really got to know each other and we relied on each other so much.
One of the most important things we ever did with our children was spend time with them, and particularly when you've got holidays. You know, go camping with them.
Well, we went over to visit Katie because she was working up in the top end of Yorkshire on a community farm.
We were missing her. We just don't want to tell her that.
Well, they miss you when you're away. Do you miss them when you're away?
I didn't miss them like, oh, God, I want to be around them, but I thought about them a lot and appreciated them a lot, which is probably good.
So are the three of you getting on well?
Yeah, most of the time.
As long as we're not in the car, getting lost.
They're atrocious in the car.
But other than that, we're good.
Yeah, no, it is good. Well, when we were in London, we went to Greenwich. It was built as a maritime retirement village almost for the sailors from the Napoleonic Wars. So that was all really interesting because we work in retirement villages.
History painter Sir James Thornhill.
And these buildings here were built before Australia was even discovered. So that's pretty amazing. Katie was in awe of it because in her degree she did art history, so she just loved it.
What does university mean?
Are you going to try and point your grandchildren into education, do you think?
You want them to have a good education no matter what they do.
Yeah.
Better than you had, maybe.
But that's my fault, really. I mean, I just didn't work hard enough, I guess. You hope the school systems have changed to encourage kids to go on, because one thing you can't take away from people is an education. I mean, the one thing my daughter's taught me is that it doesn't matter what you do, there's room for all of us. And, you know, even to the point if you don't work, you're still teaching us something. You know, you're teaching other people to care.
How are you dealing with getting old?
I don't think you really notice it. I mean, you still think you're the same. It's when you try to do something physically too quickly and pull a muscle, that just reminds you that you're getting older.
Are you fearful of the future of disability or unable to do things?
You hope that you're going to be one of the fortunate ones and not get ill in any way.
Hello, Ken. Hi, Paul.
Maybe where I work may have helped that recently, because people just tend to get on with their lives no matter what.
And then that's the one with the palace in.
You've got a nice shot of a bin there.
That one's good. You're getting better. You are getting better.
Do you measure your life in terms of success and failure in any sense?
No, not really. I mean, I suppose the success is that we're sitting here together and we haven't had tragedy happen to us.
It's just about, getting on with life and enjoying our grandchildren, our children and our friends,
Yeah. Our goals of life have never...
And then work just gets in the way.
Well, we pretend we've got swords and we make the noises of the swords fighting, and when somebody stabs us we go, ah!
Neil grew up in a Liverpool suburb and had dreams of going to Oxford, but didn't get in.
Sit. Do one.
Instead, he went to Aberdeen University, but dropped out after the first term. At 21, Neil was working on a building site and living in a squat.
I would like to be somebody in a position of importance, and I've always thought this. But I don't think I'm the right sort of person to carry the responsibility for whatever it is. I always thought, well, I'd love to be, possibly even love to be in politics or something like this.
At 28, we found Neil homeless, wandering around the west coast of Scotland.
If the money runs out, well, then for a few days there's nowhere to go to. And that's all you can do. I simply have to find the warmest shed I can find.
At 35, he was living in a council estate on the most northerly part of Britain, the Shetland Islands.
And what would you like to be doing, say, in 7 years?
I can think of all kinds of things I'd like to be doing. The real question is what am I likely to be doing?
What are you likely to be doing?
And that's a horrible question. I tend to think the most likely answer is that I'll be wandering homeless around the streets of London.
I'll just point out some of the considerable disadvantages. First of all, they are geographically...
At 42, Neil had moved to London and was a Liberal Democrat on Hackney Council.
While I was in Shetland, I felt very strongly that I should become involved in politics, simply because I felt I was not achieving anything in the ways I really wanted to.
By 49, Neil had left London, moved to Cumbria in the northwest of England, and was a Liberal Democrat member of his local district council.
Thank you, Chairman. Fairly simple. It was a committee decision, a majority decision. His own group on the establishment committee agreed with the decision.
Councillor Hughes? Well, for Councillor Nine's information, Councillor Cook has reconsidered his the opinion he ventured at that meeting. Here we are in the centre of the ward I represent on the council. These are our public toilets. I can assure you that no more fierce battle has ever been fought, either on the playing fields or indeed on the battlefields of England, to save what might appear to be a comparatively insignificant local amenity.
I mean, it sounds vaguely comic, but presumably it's not to you.
But when you live in a small community, you become very proud, rightly, of the facilities here. And people are willing to play a part in helping to keep them going, but they don't want to be ignored. They don't want to be marginalised.
My strength is being able to keep going, really. And my weakness is not being able to take any positive course of action. No formal education can prepare anybody for life. Just only life can prepare you for what comes. And sooner or later, you're going to have to cross certain barriers. There are a few things I would like to say. And the first thing to say is there's been tremendous goodwill towards the series. But I'm also aware that I'm not the only participant who wants to set the record straight in a number of ways. For so many millions of people, I'm here wearing my heart on my sleeve, and they think they know absolutely everything about me. I mean, there were countless people writing me saying, I know exactly how you feel. And actually, from those letters, I would say none of them, not a single one of them, knew exactly how I was feeling.
Well, I have a great deal of respect for the Liberal Democrats, but I think that I won't vote for them this time because...
Here in Cumbria, I'm really glad to be doing what I do, to be representing people at local political level. But in one sense, I'm doing that because it's the only way I've been able to make any money. I get a derisory amount of money for being a councillor. I do enjoy the work, but I've been completely unsuccessful in trying to find a paid career of any kind. I have always wanted to write as a career, and indeed have written huge amounts. And ironically, despite appearing in this programme so frequently, nobody has ever shown any serious interest in any of the work I do. And believe me, it's a great deal more important to me than anything I can say on a television screen. Even if somebody sent it back to you and said, well, read it and it's rubbish, actually, and that would be very demoralising, but at least some interaction would have taken place. There's hardly a day goes by when I don't write.
That's a great gift, isn't it?
It is, but it shouldn't be a sort of masturbation about which nobody else knows anything.
Neil Hughes is the Liberal Democrat candidate.
I and the Liberal Democrats want to see a just and fair society in which everyone... In 2006, I was invited to go to Australia to give a talk. And the chap who introduced me said, Neil is clearly such a profoundly motivated politician that we can all expect to see him as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in the future. Now, this wasn't a joke. I assure you, he said this with absolute serious. Now, it was ludicrous, but this is how wildly skewed the perceptions have become. I mean, do you think I would really have been invited to Australia if they were aware that I was someone who lives on a few quid a week benefit and has as much chance of changing the future of the United Kingdom as, I don't know, someone who's serving a lifetime jail sentence?
Yes, I'd say I believed in God.
Are you religious?
Well, I go to church with my parents on Sundays.
I don't know even now whether I do believe in God or not. I've thought an awful lot about it, actually, and I still don't know.
And how's he been treating you?
Well, I said to somebody last week that I preferred the Old Testament to the New Testament because in the Old Testament, God is very unpredictable. And that's, I think, how I've seen him in my life.
And Doreen as well, and also John. I was first a lay reader in London. And after completing a little more training, I was relicensed by the Bishop of Carlisle. Well, good morning. Welcome to our service today. Just a couple of notices first. If you haven't already been told, the proposed pet show is unfortunately cancelled. I'm a lay minister. I'm licensed to carry out quite a number of functions. It includes leading services, preaching, taking part in the readings, helping to distribute the communion and so on. In fact, I can do more or less everything a priest can do. To what extent am I a good model for others? I don't know. On the other hand, I am angry that so many doors have been closed, not just for me, but for so many people. I do feel nobody's listening out there. You know, there seem to be few currents that are encouraging people to stand up for their rights, not just their strict legal rights, but their rights to be human. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I'm not unappreciative of the honour it's been to be able to serve the church, to be able to serve my community, and I want to make that absolutely clear. But and it's true that I think it was Albert Camus who said that life is what happens while you're waiting for something else. But it's not the sort of place where someone who wants to change society is best employed. I mean, I would have thought that was pretty obvious. Peace with you, nice to see you both.
In the winter, if you lived in the country, well, it was just all wet and there wouldn't be anything for miles around.
We're a very quiet village. There's always room for more activity and for more people being involved, but I think we do fairly well. There's a diversity of groups. They're still trying to persuade me to go in. Actually, the thing is, apparently Alan has cried off at the last minute, so there's just the two of them. I think it was Pascal, the great philosopher and mathematician, who said that if a man can live happily in his own living room most of his life, then he's achieved the utmost philosophical breakthrough. And philosophically speaking, that's true, but I can't. You only stick me in my living room for 1 hour on my own, and I want to be out doing something. I want to be out changing things.
I have always had a nervous complaint. I had it since I was 16. It was responsible for my leaving university and for some of my difficulties with work.
Do you worry about your sanity?
Other people sometimes worry about it.
Like who?
As I said, I sometimes can be found behaving in an erratic fashion. I sometimes get very frustrated, very angry, for no apparent reason, for a reason which won't be apparent to other people around me. I don't see any way out. I've thought of everything I possibly could. It seemed to me for a long time that getting a reliable job and a nice place to live would be the solution. Well, I haven't succeeded. I can't see any immediate future at all.
Although there have been times in my life when I've been suicidal, that wasn't one of them.
So there have been worse than what we saw?
Yes, but it's not for this programme to expose my private feelings, and yet many people feel it has. Ultimately, although this time round I've been far more candid than I perhaps ever have in the past. My formal contact with the psychiatric establishment belongs mostly to my mid and later teens and a short period of my early 20s. But I soon came to the opinion that I could help myself far better than those who were purporting to help me. But I was aware even then that a lot of the therapeutic technique is about leading people to exactly this conclusion, if it's unwell. So I'm not going down the line of criticising the medical establishment.
But did you refuse to go into any sort of treatment?
No, I did have contact.
But then you discontinued it?
Yes.
Do you still think that was wise?
Yes.
You scared of getting old?
Yeah, I don't want to live to be that old. I think if I can reach something like 70 or 75 in reasonable health, that would be quite enough for me.
When I get married, I don't want to have any children because they are always doing naughty things and making the whole house untidy.
I always told myself that I would never have children.
Why?
Because children inherit something from their parents, and even if my wife were the most high-spirited and ordinary and normal of people, the child would still stand a very fair chance of being not totally full of happiness because of what he or she will have inherited from me.
Have you ever really had a romantic, emotional relationship?
Well, I've had several, but the fact that I'm living alone still obviously betrays the fact that none of them has endured.
Is there a reason for that?
Relationships always involve two people.
But a string of failures, does that tell us something?
Well, I'm sure it does. Any fool can see that. I'm not saying you're a fool.
And what does it tell us?
It tells you what you like. It tells you that I haven't been successful in relationships. It may tell you that I'm intolerant, but more likely it tells you that I don't have the capacity for making a relationship work. But I must stress again that it does take two. I have never walked out of any relationship with anybody.
It sounds like ghostly coloured people. You think of a purple person with red eyes, and yellow feet, and it can't really think about what they really look like.
I find it hard to believe that I was ever like that, but there's the evidence. And probably when I was 7, I just lived in a wonderful world where everything was sensation and I could be happy like this, and I could be miserable next minute.
What makes you happy?
Happy is a difficult word. How many people are happy? Perhaps we're most happy when we're not aware of it and enjoying a relaxed meal with some friends, just being with friends. I think the few weekends in the year when I'm lucky to be able to go and stay with some of my long-term friends, I'm really happy. I can think of hardly anything better than walking across the fields when we just chat about the things we're both interested in and our aspirations. And I think that's the noblest and in many ways most satisfying of relationships you can possibly have. How it would be if we lived next door to each other, I don't know. It might be very different, but maybe the joy in some relationships is that you see some people only infrequently.
I don't think you want to go to university if you want to be an astronaut. Watch this.
Peter and Neil were childhood friends growing up in Liverpool. Peter went to a comprehensive school and went on to get a history degree from London University.
I would like to think that democracy is here to stay. Perhaps we haven't got full democracy. In fact, we probably haven't. It's a pretty good system.
Are you surprised by the way England's being governed?
I'm not surprised with the people who govern it at the moment, no.
Why?
I've even stopped being amazed.
Why?
Why? Well, I don't want to get dragged into party politics, you know, but basically this is the most incompetent, uncaring bloody show we've ever had.
After 28 Up, Peter decided not to continue in the film. Why did you pull out?
I pulled out because of the responses and the reactions that my participation drew in the weeks afterwards, particularly in the tabloid press. They decided they were going to portray me as the angry young red in Thatcher's England.
Well, it's just a principle, you know, that's all there is to it.
I think I was articulating at the time what a lot of people of my age and my background were thinking, and I was an easy target.
They're part of it, they perpetuate it.
But I was absolutely taken aback, completely, genuinely shocked at what I saw as the level of malice and ill will directed towards me. Until you've experienced it yourself, you can't begin to appreciate how it feels.
So now you're back, so why did you come back?
I feel a lot happier with myself, happier in my own skin. And then, secondly, more specifically, because I want to promote the music and the band I'm in.
It was a gold rush town.
And what are you called?
We're called the Good Intentions.
But when he hit that bang, he thought that...
I'd always played in rock bands, some of them spectacularly bad bands. What really got me into this music was being exposed to the music of Graham Parsons. Because way back in the day I was a big Elvis Costello fan. And I read an interview with him in which he said, well, I think I'm a good songwriter, listen to this guy, Graham Parsons. It was almost like an epiphany. It was like I was hearing the music I'd been waiting to hear all my life.
Once Carolyn Tedford said she loved me. And I'm going to marry her when I grow up.
Doesn't appeal to me at all at the moment. For me, I'm just gone 20. I haven't even been abroad yet in my life. So there's no way I'm going to get settled down.
So, well, what do you want to do? Do you just want to record, me and Pete to record what we're doing and you'll work round it?
I think that's probably... We were working in an office together and we joined the office band, and that's how we got to know each other.
So, Gabby, and was it love at first sight?
Well, I had a sneaking suspicion that Pete liked me because he was really rude and sarcastic to me all the time. So I thought, I think he's probably quite keen.
No, that's not true. And you've always played together since then?
Yeah, more or less. I think
Yeah.
we probably stopped for a while when the kids were little.
Our boy's 19, our daughter's 16. And how are they doing?
They're great. They're
doing
really good.
remarkably well. Our son is in his first year at university, and our daughter is coming up to her GCSEs. Once you have your own kids, you have this huge realisation of how your own parents felt about you and what they did for you. What's the greatest gift a parent can give a child? It's their unstinting love and support and their time. Their time, because I think children value that more than anything. You giving, unconditionally, you're giving them your time.
Well, if I can't be an astronaut, I'd like to be a bridewell sergeant in the police force, like my dad is.
So are you under pressure to get a job?
Yeah, I suspect they am from the parents. They keep dropping hints. Teachers are undervalued and underrated, and the system is beginning to crumble. You know, people outside of it don't realise that, but it is, and it's very disillusioning. I left teaching not long after that programme. It was actually nothing to do with the programme. That was a misunderstanding at the time, I think, which took hold in the press. And I'd been planning to leave teaching anyway. And I just didn't see a long-term future in it for myself. And I just thought I had to be honest with myself about that, and honest to the kids I was teaching at the time, and move on to something else.
It might be better to start off just at the end.
After teaching, Peter studied law and joined the civil service. Gabby also works there. The civil service, despite changes currently taking place, is still comparatively a pretty decent employer.
So should you do one of the new
What
ones?
sort of area of the civil service are you in? Department for Work and Pensions.
You've changed the key in that one.
I've changed the key, it's now an F sharp, sorry about that.
Oh, marvellous.
But you got the MP3 I sent?
When Pete writes, he often wants to share that and at a fairly early stage talk about what he's writing. And if it's no good, I have to tell him. And that's quite difficult, isn't it?
I'm sure it is, yeah.
She was running down roads I didn't know.
So, when we started work on the album we're doing now, Pete said to me, he said, I've got 120 song ideas I want to go through. And I said, but of those 120, really, we need to get it down to about 10, so I'm going to have to tell you that 110 are no good.
How do you take criticism? Well, I think I take it better than I used to.
That's not setting the bar very high, though, is
no.
it?
What have been for you the best times?
Tommy Smith scoring the second goal in Rome. Definitely. One of the old times.
Which game was that?
Which game was that? That was the European Cup final, 1977.
That's still up there, by the way. But along with what? But, well, getting married for the second time and having two children have been hugely significant moments in my life.
What do you want out of life?
The satisfaction of knowing that I've left some sort of imprint, rather than just lived out my life.
You've been gone for so long, Evangeline. No one's looking for you anymore.
I hesitate to say I think I have made my mark now, because that sounds horrendously vain. But I've created a body of work of which I feel very proud. I feel I've achieved something of lasting value. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we have begun to become reasonably successful in terms of critical responses. We were voted the UK's Americana Act of the Year at the British Country Music Awards. You know, from time to time, like anybody else, I'll look back and think, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I'd done that differently. But I don't think really life is there to be regretted. Life is there to be lived. And I think the most important thing is to feel that by and large you haven't compromised too much, and that you've moved your life on where you want your life to go.
And what about the other children? Where are they now? What are they doing?
I would like to get married when I grow up.
I mean, I know that's not possible to be happy all the time, but as much of the time that was possible.
When I grow up, I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
It would seem really ridiculous to any of my friends who watch this if I said, Christ, aren't I a great success? Look at me.
When I get married, I'd like to have 2 children.
Oh, I don't like babies.
I feel like bundling when there's already a fight.
I think I admire people with great determination. You know, like people who just come up from nothing.